On the line right now, talking to Alex and Jane from Russia's Imperial Age. Thanks for joining me today.
Hello, Mal. Thank you for having this interview. Thank you for inviting us.
Hello.
Hello. Now, tell us a bit about how the band started.
The idea came in 2010. The band itself was started in 2012, when we actually recorded the first album, Turn the Sun Off, made the first few music videos, and actually started trying to attract the world's attention to what we're doing. So that's kind of the short story.
Now, you two are the prime movers behind the band. How did you get the other guys in?
Well, there are a lot of musicians on the Russian underground scene, so the only difficulty that we have ever experienced was actually picking the best of them.
Picking the right guys.
Yeah.
I think that's the better word. Not the best, but the right.
The best for us.
Were you playing in a live situation before recording the album, or did you just sort of assemble the band, go into the studio and record, and then tour? How did it work?
Well, I did play. I had another band called Revelance. Before that, it was your typical local amateur band.
We just got so tired of all this amateurish bullshit, so that we just decided to close that one and to make the band in a bit different way.
You see, the problem with most bands, with most musicians who just start out, is that normally you have maybe one or two guys who are kind of the locomotive of the whole business, and then there are the other guys who just join along. The situation is that at one point in time, the one or two locomotives, which are usually the heads of the band as well, they are encountered with a feeling that they're doing all the job, but the rest of the guys are not doing enough. And that's where conflicts in the band begin, because everybody wants to be equal when it comes to earnings, be that money or attention from the public or whatever the people are in the band for, girls, I don't know, whatever. But they want the income to be spread equally, and I mean income in a broad sense of the word, not just the money, but the investment, which I also mean in a broad sense of the word, which doesn't only include money, but also includes working hours, includes personal energy, contributions in like writing music, organizing shit, contacts, whatever, is usually not equal. It's usually the one or two main people doing all the jobs. So that's exactly the situation which I encountered in Reynolds. Jane was not in the band by that time. At that time.
But still, I was somewhere around.
Yeah. And the situation was that at some point I got sick and tired of this, and I just, decided to legalize things. And that's when she stepped in, and we decided that, okay, we do all the job, but the band is us. So, and since that time, it seems to be working. So there are no more conflicts with regard to who's inputting what and who's getting what, because it works more or less as a business. I mean, we hire people, they do the job, they get their money in return, and we do all the rest. And it's not just an Imperial Age that works. A lot of really big and successful bands, some of whom we know personally, they work in the same way. Like, for example, Therion or Accept, I know work on the same thing, or Creator or Amantasia. I mean, a lot of really successful names have adopted this scheme, and it's actually when it only matters when you are a small band. When you start really getting some money coming in, it more or less anyway shifts to this model. That was the long answer.
Tell us about Turn the Sun Off. Tell us about how it came to be recorded. How did you record it? Who you got in to help you? And how you went about promoting it.
Well, the oldest song on that record is The Castaways. It was composed back in 2004. And the song which was the latest composed, I think it's actually Anthem of Valor, it was composed in 2011. So on that record, we have songs which had been composed over the period of almost 8 years.
But some of old songs, they were a bit modified.
Yeah, some of those songs actually came from the previous band, but they were modified, modernized, improved, reproduced and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of what we thought was the best of from what was composed over the previous 8 years. Basically since school years,
My introduction to the band was Anthem of Valor. That was the first song I checked out when I said, well, I better look into this band, see what they're about. And that's the film clip I saw, and I went, fuck, this is epic.
That's a good reaction. That's cool.
Tell us about that song.
Well, there isn't really much to tell as it is with songs. They just come naturally. You don't sit there and you think, I'm going to make this song and it's going to be like this. It's more like you sit at the keyboard and something comes up. That's kind of it. The only thing which is maybe worth telling is that the guy who was recording guitars for us back then, he's not on the album because he was more helping me to come up with the riffs, because I'm not a guitar player myself. Back at that time, both me and him were really fans of Amon Amarth, and you can hear that in the verse, which is a little bit like Amon Amarth-ish. But that gives the song this, maybe a little bit folkish or Vikingish feeling. The second thing to tell about is
the drummer.
The second thing is the violin solo. So we decided, why the hell is there always guitar solos? Let's make a violin solo. And it was quite difficult to find a violin player who could do that, but eventually we did it. But you can tell about the drummer. I agree.
I think that was the hardest part in recording the whole album, because I don't remember the number, maybe 5 or 6 drummers refused to record this song because it was too fast for them. And finally we found a guy from, I don't remember the name of the tiny city somewhere around Moscow, who just came to Moscow, recorded it from first or
second take, yeah.
Yes, and he just went back.
So we record, yes. Okay, where's my money? Goodbye. That was it.
Okay, so how did you tour then after that? Where did you find a drummer to tour?
As I said, this has never been a problem because we have a lot of acquaintances in the underground scene. So basically we just asked Bell, he's our bass player still at the moment, but back then he was playing guitar. And he knows everybody, so he just found us a drummer. And that drummer has been playing us. His name is Dmitry Kovalov. Yeah, he played for 3 years with us after that. He's actually the second longest lasting member of the band. So we started playing around Russia, and when you play metal in Russia, you mostly play Moscow and St. Petersburg. So that's where we started playing.
How was the album received? How did it sell?
Well, it's a difficult question because it was a self-release back then. So in Russia, there is no such thing as a record label in your general sense of the word. So there are a few people who call themselves record labels, but a record label is normally an institution which not just prints the CDs, but which gives proper distribution, so it's an institution which actually invests into the brand, which invests into the band, which promotes the music, which makes good distribution, which tries to improve sales, basically invest money into the band. And none of the Russian so-called record labels are doing that. It's a normal situation in the Western countries like Europe, United States, Australia, Canada, whatever, but not in Russia. So there is absolutely no point in contracting any of the Russian labels. So we did a self-release. And when you're doing a self-release out of the box, you don't really have proper tracks of sales. I don't know. We have that now, but back then this did not occur. So
and we did not have any connections abroad in Russia, so
we had no access to the outside, basically metal market back then. So it's actually quite difficult for me to answer your question, given also the fact that nobody buys CDs in Russia. So people just download illegal music from torrents. Nobody pays for anything. Russia is still a country of piracy. So, and it will be like that. It has been like that, and it will be like that. Overall, the album had some sales, but I don't know if they were good or bad because there is nothing to compare with. There is no institutionalized system of charts like SoundScan or anything.
So the CDs that you were selling, was that mainly selling at gigs?
At gigs and through the internet, yeah.
So tell us what happened after that album came out and like after the tour. You did an EP in 2015. What was the story there?
Well, in 2012, 2013, we mainly toured in Russia. So we played Moscow, St. Petersburg, a few headliner shows, and we mostly tried to concentrate on support because we thought that would give us some publicity here. Eventually, it didn't give us any publicity here, but it gave us the contacts which we needed to get ourselves outside of the country.
I've almost forgotten about these support shows in Russia because they really playing supports in Russia don't make any sense, speaking honestly.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because in Russia people don't like local bands. I think it can be applied on every country. So just people don't like local supports.
They go to see the main band and don't care about anybody else on the bill? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so we had a very different... We did 3 big support tours in Europe, and we played around maybe 10 or 15. I never counted. Well, I can count, but I can't be asked to.
Can be 15, maybe 10.
In Russia for various bands, and the reaction of the audience has been very, very, very different. So it seems to me that in the Western world, playing supports is the primary means of promoting music. Well, at least in rock and metal, and the audience always reacts really, really positively and warmly. In Russia, local supports are usually regarded as a nuisance.
Something annoying, like a mosquito.
Yeah, so you have to listen to this shit. Why not they just bring the headliner in? So it's a different mentality, it's a different attitude. So the people are really, really crazy about everything foreign, but they have a natural suspicion to everything local.
That there's going to be shit.
Yeah, there is a reason for this, because our country doesn't really produce anything except spaceships, and rockets. So everything else is imported. So it's not just in music, it's also concerning every commodity. People have a natural suspicion to anything homemade, like take Russian cars, for example, and things like that. So since the Soviet times, there has been an inadequate praise towards everything imported. So even a shitty band from Finland can pull a lot of people here. And a Russian band, I'm not talking about us, there are a lot of cool bands here, but a Russian band that actually plays much better would be often disregarded just due to prejudice because they are local. But again, I think that this mentality is not only in music, it's just everywhere. If you are a local producer, you really have to earn the trust of your customers. And if we look, for example, in other spheres, like there are some Russian footwear companies, but they all have Italian names, and they try to pretend that they're foreign because that improves their sales. You know, girls don't like to buy Russian shoes. They think it's going to be shit, but they know that Italian shoes are going to be cool. You know, but actually the shoes are identical. It's only in the head of the consumer. So for this reason, playing support shows domestically turned out to be a waste of resources, while doing this abroad turned out to be the best way of promotion.
And that's why we do not do any promotion for Russia now. Then we wait to receive some, raises in sales and in our publicity in Russia just because we're gaining something abroad.
It's called spillover effect. So
yes.
If you have something, well, there are A markets, B markets, C markets, etc. So if you're good on the A market, which is basically the English-speaking countries like UK, USA, Canada, Australia, and Europe and Western Europe, then you have a spillover effect which goes downwards. So that's how it turned out to be. For some reason, I don't know why, but all statistics shows that Imperial Age is mostly popular in the UK. I have no fucking idea why.